offense on Saturday?
Yeah, I think there were instances on Saturday where his timing was right, his feet were right, he was able to get the ball out on time, and there were other instances on Saturday where you look at it and he would be the first to tell you, like, yeah, we probably could have done some things better, for sure. And so I think it was a little bit up and down, and a lot of that had to do with a lot of different variables. Whether it was protection, whether it was time, whether it was route depth. There were instances where he was ready to throw the football and we were off on the outside. So, I think when you look at it, it's easy to say, he didn't complete. At one point he was less than 50%. Wasn't as accurate as he has been, but there's a lot of variables that go into that, and some of them are unseen to the naked eye. And so, it certainly wasn't his best day of the year by far, but he would be the first to tell you that.
Where are things right now as far as deciding how much Ryan Brown can or should play? Guys haven't really worked him in earlier in games since Hudson came back, except for the first week. Yeah.
Right, and so that's a conversation that we're continuing to have in our offensive staff room right now. And where does he fit in the game plan? Where do we see him fitting in the flow of the game? Those are all things that we're trying to get a handle on early in the week this week, so we can prepare ourselves, for Saturday going into it.
Yeah, just Jason. Still some issues with getting off to good starts in the first quarter. I'm sure you've exhausted or continue to rack your brains trying to figure out how to get off to a better start. I guess just kind of comment on that and on the slow starts.
So much of it is like one little play. If you go all the way back to, we were up in Madison, we had a holding call on the first drive. We were getting ready to be 1st and 10, just shy of midfield, and had a holding call set us behind the chains. And we can go through same thing at Illinois. We were rolling at Illinois. Reggie rips a run down inside the 15, comes back on a holding call. So, so much of it are just, the devil in that answer is in the details, really. We on Saturday we felt like we had a good opening plan in mind. We were able to rip a couple of runs, and then we just stalled out. So, we got to continue to dig on that. We've scripted the first 6 calls of a game. We've gone into it saying, hey, here's how we're going to get started with the first 2 calls. And so we've tried a little bit of everything. We just got to continue to stay in a rhythm. And really we got to establish a rhythm and then just stay with it on that opening drive and working the knowns, just to where our kids have confidence and we can continue to try and grind first downs out.
And just, every time you look up, here comes Ohio State, here comes Penn State, there was Notre Dame, there was Oregon. It's got to be exhausting to see this litany of, I guess, heavyweights staring in the face every Saturday.
Well, when you look up and you essentially have 11 Power 4 games, there aren't very many teams in the country playing the schedule that we're playing. But at the same time, we tell our players all the time, hey, you can't make excuses. And so if we're not going to let them do it, we can't do it ourselves. And it's certainly not for the faint of heart, coaching and playing in the Big Ten. And you got to know what you're getting into when you do it. But the schedule has certainly been a challenge. When you look up and it's like you alluded to, Tom. We go on the road to Oregon State, and then we come back, and that was after playing Notre Dame, and then you come back and play 9 Big Ten games on the back end of those 2 non-con games, and certainly not easy by any stretch of the imagination. But it's the cards that were dealt, and so you either show up and you get to work every week, or you use it as a crutch. And we're not wired. Starting with our head coach, Coach Walters, we're not wired to use it as a crutch. And so, we're showing up and we're getting to work. Our players are doing the same. We're blessed to have guys that are showing up and competing every day in practice. Our guys showed up and played hard on Saturday, and we just got to continue to work to get better.
You got another elite defense in State College. Just what have you seen from them on tape?
Well, we've seen a lot. When you look up and they. They're going to show a lot of different fronts. They're going to show a lot of different blitzes. They're going to show a lot of different coverage looks. They do a really good job mixing coverage. You look at their defensive line; it's certainly one of the best defensive lines in the country. You look in their back end, and their 2 safeties kind of get their back end rolling and started. Those guys are really instinctive back there. They have good ball skills, and so we got to be alert to where they're at pre-snap and post-snap. But they have an aggressive mindset for sure. They're going to continue to bring pressure. We're going to continue to see pressure in man coverage week in and week out until we beat it, to be honest. And so we know that. It's part of what they do week in and week out, so it's not going to be anything new to us this week. But they're aggressive, and it starts up front with their defensive line, which I think is really, really good. They're not only talented up there, but they play fast, and they do a really good job of moving them post snap and putting them in positions to have good matchups for them.
You and Tom Allen were on staff together earlier in your life together, and I don't know if this was something that you guys talked about back then, as like a potentially meeting in a avenue like this. But just what is it? What do you remember about that time? What do you remember about him as a coach and just getting to this point together?
I was blessed to get hired by Coach Allen in 2006 at Ben Davis High School, and we spent 1 year together then in 2006, and he's a high energy. He's exactly what you see on TV. He's not putting on an act for TV. He's a high energy guy that loves his players. Highly competitive. He's got a high football IQ. He grew up around the game and in the game, and that shows. And we've stayed in touch throughout. His coaching journey, which took him on a lot of different stops when he left Ben Davis, and obviously when he was the head coach down south. I was able to spend quite a bit of time with him, throughout the year at different parts of the year, just because it's all because of proximity. And so, I owe a lot to him. One, he gave me an opportunity to coach at Ben Davis High School, which, has been a very beneficial place for me in my career. But, just as a friend and a mentor, he's meant a lot. And so to have the opportunity to match wits with him on Saturday is going to be a lot of fun personally. But, when from 3:30 on, it's, I know how he's wired. I know how I'm wired. It's going to be business. I'll get a chance to see him before the game, hopefully on the field, and I'll get a chance to see him right after the game. But in that 3+ hour chunk of time in the middle of the day, like, we're going to do everything we can to go get a win, and they're going to do everything they can to stay in the playoff race.